Good afternoon and welcome again to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. I'm Mo Wright, Chair of the Board and President of Raymond Consulting, and we're so excited to see all of you today with the newsmakers in the news. We're looking forward to today's conversation. Today's forum is about the future of what we all consider to be an integral part of any local community, the local newspaper. The Columbus Dispatch has been that for generations here in Columbus, and so today we're here to take a look at what has happened with the paper and what we can look forward to in the future. We'll be learning about the changes that have been made. There's been changes to editorial content and the look and feel of the paper, and so we're looking forward to hearing more about that, and I'm going to introduce a panel to do just that. Joining us today, President and Publisher of the Dispatch Media Group, Bradley Harmon, Publisher and General Manager of Dispatch Magazines, Ray Paprocki, the CEO of GateHouse Media, Kirk Davis, and our host today, and certainly no stranger to the CMC stage, the Chief Content Director for News and Public Affairs at WOSU Public Media, Mike Thompson. Mike, the podium is yours.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you, Mo, and thank you all for coming. You know, we in the news business, and we consumers of news, think we are special. We think the world has never seen such a communications revolution before. Well, I've got news for you. We've been here before. I'm looking back over the changes in mass communications. I looked to the first guy to lose his job to new media, the town crier. And where else to find information about the town crier but Wikipedia? So he, usually it was a he, sometimes a she, would ring a bell, hear ye, report the news, public announcements, law changes, proclamations, market days. In Germany, the town crier reminded the people not to urinate in the local river the day before water was drawn to brew beer. So, town criers were protected by the law, as they sometimes brought bad news like tax increases. Harming the messenger was treason, so the First Amendment, if you will. So the town crier was the mainstream media in the 18th century. Then came the printing press, people learned to read, and the town crier started looking for a PR job. About 150 years ago, newspapers came to dominate the media. Cities had several. Then came the wireless, the radio, TV, the desktop, the laptop, the smartphone, the tablet, the smartwatch. Now we have virtual reality headsets, whatever they are. News, more than ever, is a commodity, and this fragmentation has meant huge changes for the newspaper industry. For more than a century, Columbus was immune from the biggest change in the industry, the sale of its local newspaper. But that era ended last year when the Wolfe family sold the Dispatch to GateHouse Media and its parent company, New Media Investments. The sale has brought some changes to the newsroom, some outsourcing, some layoffs, a move to a new building. But for all but the most careful readers, the paper remains largely the same, covering the State House, City Hall, the Buckeyes. So this afternoon we'll discuss the transition and what the future holds for the Dispatch and its other publications in the media industry in general. First, we'll hear from our modern-day town crier, the publisher of the Dispatch, Bradley Harmon.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike, and I really appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to thank the CMC for hosting us today. You know, this is a real pleasure, and we really appreciate it, my colleagues as well. So, you know, before we get started, can I see a show of hands? Who read the Dispatch today? Thank you so much. You know, hopefully all my colleagues in the front row here did, watching very closely, but more importantly, it's just encouraging. And I know that it could be read in print, online, mobile, magazines, social, you pick it. We reach that audience. So let's get started. So last September, interim publisher Jim Hobson and Dispatch editor Alan Miller shared an update on what was happening at Dispatch Media Group at the time. Jim retired for a second, some say a third time, to sunny Florida and handed off the baton to me on October 26th. We've been busy ever since. I arrived with great hope and promise, and I'm pleased to say that what I found here is one of the best media franchises in the country, the best. We are a strong news and information company and remain a strong presence in Central Ohio. Before I dive into details about what we've been up to since I arrived, I'll share a few points about myself. I'm a native Ohioan. Having grown up east of Cleveland, I'm very happy to be back in Ohio after a 23-year sabbatical. My career in media spanned over 33 years, and including the past 6 with GateHouse Media in a variety of roles. During my talk today, I want to refer to 4 key pillars: our commitment to content, how we're innovating on the commerce side, community involvement, and culture. These 4 pillars form the foundation of everything we do and represent every day. So let's get started with what everyone reads every day: content. I want to be clear. Our continued commitment to great content at every platform is unwavering. My primary focus is to keep top reporters, photographers, and videographers in the field, finding great stories and producing compelling photos and videos to keep us coming back. And by coming back, I mean multiple times throughout the day. We update the content on our site, mobile app constantly, sometimes hundreds of times a day, hundreds of times. Heck, some big stories alone are updated a dozen times, and as news develops. A good example of this was the Ohio primary election last week's results. It's all in the name of making sure you just don't miss a beat. At the end of the day, we got you covered. An example of our commitment to purposeful content recently came in November when we published a 6-part series on a suicide series by our award-winning news team. The Silent Suffering series was a 9-month effort that culminated with a community forum at the Ohio Union on December 7th. We partnered with Columbus Foundation to produce the forum, which was something new for the Dispatch, and we greatly appreciate the Foundation's involvement. It was a very sobering and enlightening series, one that made a difference in many, many lives, and that's what we do. We know that because dozens told us. They wrote us, they called us, they showed up at the forum to talk about the series. And the ripples of that conversation continue across the state and the State House today. In addition, we're refreshing components of the Dispatch, dispatch.com, with a new auto platform called bestride.com, our new mobile app, a refurbished real estate section, an updated employment package, all online and in print. Bestride.com is already here, and others will follow later in March. Later this year, we will redesign the dispatch.com website, working with the Mario Garcia Design Group, one of the most respected and top designers in the world for print and websites. He's designed such sites as Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and McClatchy, to say a few. And lastly, we are converting to a high-quality, bright white newsprint to ensure a better reader experience for subscribers and advertisers alike. We hope you notice and appreciate the upgrade. So stay tuned. There's a lot going on, and we'll be telling you more later on. On the commerce side, as we continue to deliver the audience our advertisers, clients expect, we made strategic changes in our organization to position us for the future. Our goal is to continue to innovate for our clients and help them achieve maximum impact in reaching the right audiences at the right time at the right investment. They expect us to deliver results, and we do. One of the biggest changes in our product portfolio came with a digital services company called Propel Marketing. It's a full-service provider of digital services such as search engine marketing, search engine optimization, social media, and so on. This is a one-stop shop for all who know they need to embrace the digital revolution, but don't have the time or staff to put together sustainable marketing strategies. Propel is all local supported. Very exciting opportunity for us and our clients. Our commitment to community is a priority of mine and a big focus. I've been diving headfirst into meetings with clients, dignitaries, and readers on both small stages, such as a personal phone call to a reader, and large stages like the CMC gathering to us today. Bottom line, you made it clear. You want to know what we're doing and appreciate. We really, really appreciate that. Just recently, I joined the Columbus Partnership, which is led by Alex Fisher, includes a remarkable group of business and community leaders with one mission in mind. How can we continue to make Columbus a destination city and a progressive place to do business? I'm honored to be a member, and I'm excited about contributing to the future of Columbus. In addition, we continue with great partnerships from Columbus Crew, the Clippers, Blue Jackets, Pearl Market, the Zoo, Mid-Ohio Food Bank, YWCA, just to name a few. As you might have heard, or noticed, recently we moved the Dispatch newsroom and magazine division editorial offices from 34 3rd Street to 62 East Broad Street. Yes, we now have 2 signs. At the same time, we rolled out a new computer system, and Alan can attest to this, moved some of our copy editing functions to our design center in Austin, Texas, and moved some non-editorial departments to our printing plant on Georgesville Road to ensure efficiency and synergy among departments. Just so you know, while our downtown office faces Capitol Square on a different angle, Alan's binoculars are still squarely focused on the State House. Our offices built in 1921 for the Ohio State Journal have been renovated, and the building is an energizing environment. It's great, and we're excited to be downtown. This is a true reflection and display of our culture at the Dispatch. So in closing, I want to thank you for being here today and your feedback and your passion around what we do. Please continue to challenge us, and we'll do the same. But most important, please keep reading. Thank you so much. To Ray Paprocki, my colleague. Ray?
Thanks, Brad. I just want to start by saying that print is not dead. I believe in the power of print, especially local magazines, especially the magazines in our portfolio. And I was thinking about this the other day, an interesting fact. If you take our 3 core publications, Columbus Monthly, Columbus CEO, Columbus Alive, the combined brand presence in this market, more than 80 years. More than 80 years. That says something. What it says is that we have a strong foundation. It also says that we're not going to relive the past. We're going to use the past as a springboard for the future. And our future is also an important element is digital, but it is a complement to, not a replacement of. Let me give you some statistics from the Association of Magazine Media about generally magazines, but they also apply to the local level. 3 quick ones. The vast majority of people still read magazines. More than 90% of adults read magazines. More readers are under the age of 35 than they are over 35 reading print magazines. And the engagement levels with magazines for both readers and advertisers compete with anybody. I've been in this business, in the city and regional magazine, almost my entire career. This is the space I love being in. But none of those statistics matter if we don't do our job right. And our job is bringing value. And in part, bringing value is that when our magazines come to you, they should feel like a gift. There's that little special moment when the magazine comes in the mail, and you unwrap it, you spend a little bit of time with it, you see what's inside. I was so heartened. Carol McGuire, Carol came up to me talking about Columbus Monthly. I would hope that you consider it a gift, and that is our goal. And we do this by paying attention to every detail, whether it's paper, whether it's printing quality, whether it's word choice, storytelling, design, photography. All that matters. All the small stuff matters. And in essence, it boils down to doing 2 things really well on the content side. That is discovery and explanation. Discovery is us sharing the things that help you navigate your life in this region, from recommending restaurants to attorneys or doctors. Explanation is the how and the why, the authoritative, in-depth reports on the people and issues of the day, from power to poverty, the things that you can't in a magazine format can explain things in ways that other media can't quite. And we have a commitment to doing those 2 things really well. Now, there's been a lot of transition at the magazine group, and we're taking a hard look at everything that we do. We do a lot of things really well, but you can always ask, what can we do better? And we're doing that with everything that we do, from digital to events, our print publications, and trying to put a stronger emphasis on growing a custom publication division. And in that vein, we started out by refocusing Columbus Monthly in light of the fact that we no longer publish Capital Style or Crave. So our plan was to refocus by bringing in elements from those 2 publications. We are beefing up our dining coverage in Columbus Monthly every month, in addition to taking 2 of the franchises from Crave, Tastemakers and Best Restaurants, and packaging it with our existing Best New Restaurants for a trio of really strong food coverage. And then we are also taking our home and style elements every month, a home and style section in Columbus Monthly, in addition to really improving our home and garden publication. And then we have devoted ourselves to having more explanation journalism in the publication. And so we believe we have 3 promises to deliver to you. And we started in January, and I believe that we have begun delivering on those promises with our first 3 issues. Explanation, our January cover on Power Shift, the examination of the transition in leadership in the city. February, Best New Restaurants, food package. March, spring fashion tied to a story about the impact of the fashion industry on the city. Now, none of this is possible without a great team, and I'm proud and excited that I'm working with very talented, dedicated, passionate people, some of whom are in the audience right now. If you wouldn't mind raising your hand, everyone from the magazine division. They're the ones who are producing these gifts that we are delivering to you. So I say thank you, and thank you to the audience. Kirk?
Thank you, and good afternoon. Before I get started, just a show of hands again to be clear, who didn't read the dispatch today? I was all prepared from the media over the last few weeks to know how to handle the protesters and such, but seems like we've got a good audience. My name is Kirk Davis, and I have the privilege of serving as the CEO of GateHouse Media. I thought I would use my few minutes, since my colleagues talked a little bit about our portfolio and some of the initiatives underway, just to tell you a little bit about myself. First of all, before I do that, I want to thank all the Dispatch Media employees who are here and those at work. I met with many of them yesterday in the newsroom. Very proud of how they're handling the transition. It's an amazing group of people, very talented. I'm also very grateful and humbled to be speaking with you about the Columbus Dispatch, just given John Wolfe's legacy. Very humbled by that, and as I'll share in a few minutes, you can get a full appreciation of why. So I am from Lancaster, Ohio. I went to Lancaster High School. I had my first newspaper experience at the Lancaster Eagle-Gazette, working with the boys and girls that deliver the papers. And when they don't deliver the papers, I delivered the papers. Went on to work in Piqua, Ohio, Newark, Ohio, back to the Lancaster Eagle-Gazette, and then my career kind of took off. I had a chance to work in a lot of different cities across the country. For much of the past 3 decades, my mom, Linda, and father, Tom Woltz, in Lancaster, always prayed that I would somehow end up back in Ohio, as my brother did, who is a county commissioner in Fairfield County and a successful lawyer, and I'm in the newspaper business for whatever that means, and I'm not sure she ever really completely understood it. My dad, though, would say, you need to come back here and run the Dispatch. We need you back here. And I think that's impractical, Dad. Mr. Wolfe's doing a good job. Don't see that in the cards. When I realized that we were going to acquire the Dispatch Media Group, it was surreal for me. I remember the moment I heard it and thought about it, and was anxious to tell my mom at the very least I'd be coming home a lot more often. Still probably not often enough, but a lot more often, because it's a big challenge. And I actually had a moment in the whole process where I thought maybe being the CEO of the largest group of newspapers in America couldn't rival maybe being the publisher of this one. It really was a soul-searching moment for me to think about whether this was a time to put my heart and soul into one paper instead of trying to preside over so many. And I was really thinking deeply about that last spring and summer as we got into things. But there were bigger things on my family's mind at the time. My mom was, in tears and excited, the thrill, didn't know how to really process, the fact that I'd be coming back. And she was battling cancer. So as it turns out, she died a month after we closed on the paper. And some of those thoughts I had about maybe stepping off the fast track and digging in here just didn't seem as practical. But it's still an amazing thing for me. I have a lot of family in the region. I spent the last couple of days with my dad, who's in an Alzheimer's unit in a rest home in Lancaster. So to be able to come back, work with the team, try to make a difference here, and be connected to my family that way during this time in his life is pretty remarkable. So Ohio is important to me. This paper is the largest in our portfolio. It's also the one that has the resources where some of the most remarkable things could happen to figure out the future of daily newspaper publishing. And there's so many interesting experiments going on around the country, and I hope that this can be one of them. I think key to that is not only reassuring you and meeting your expectations, but asking you to meet us halfway and engaging with us and accessing us. We're very accessible to figure things out on how we march forward. I just have such fond memories of growing up in Ohio, truthfully. I was a football player, so I started with the Woody Hayes era, but from Woody, Earl, John, Jim, Luke, Urban, Rex Kern, Archie Griffin. It's just amazing memories. So when I tell you I'm thrilled to be here, I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm really honored to be here. I'm looking forward to making a difference with the team at the Dispatch, hopefully and in the industry. So, GateHouse Media, we're a very large, national organization. I think Mr. Wolfe felt the benefits of a national company and a major local player like this could pave a very solid future for the Dispatch Media Group. We have 10,000 employees, over 560 publications in 31 states, and more daily newspapers than any other company. But there are two values I espouse to my folks all the time as we get a lot of press, not always great, about acquiring newspapers. Bigger isn't better, better's better. So don't wax poetic about being the largest company out there. Figure out how to do it really well, and your readers and employees will let you know how you're doing there. And to remember, you don't have to figure it all out yourself. I certainly couldn't. Leadership is leading while being led. And to the extent that I can really engage all the employees and all the people in the community and the business leaders, we can figure it out together. So anyway, I'm truly honored to be here. Thank you.
Well, Kirk, we'll start with your company. You are getting bigger. You want to spend $1 billion over 3 years to buy newspapers around the country. With all the gloom and doom that surrounds the newspaper industry, why?
Great question. Well, first of all, we see a lot of value in local media, and we actually think there's a dislocation in the price to acquire local media properties and the value that can still be derived. So we're value buyers, and then we go in and we believe we can add value. So a lot of the resources that we bring to bear enable many of the franchises that we've acquired to grow and prosper. I don't know for how many years into the future, but to navigate all the challenges right now well. So to do it profitably, to do well for investors who have expectations there as well. But the relationships and the trusted local brands that are part of our portfolio give us access to conversations that we think pave for an exciting future. Areas where we're working with all the local businesses now, not just on their print advertising, but for all their digital needs. And we just acquired a company yesterday that's going to accelerate those efforts called Thrive Hive. And we're getting into events. The Dispatch has done a wonderful job, hosting local events. All of our media properties have that opportunity to host more events. You see the power in that, bringing community together. So we've identified a lot of ways to still grow local media properties and help fund journalism. And that's the number one thing in our company that we're inspired by, is that we see a path to funding journalism, hopefully for a very long time in print. But we get over $400 million of our company's revenue, we're $1.2 billion, from subscription revenue, and we view that as earned revenue. You do a great job covering your community, doing a great job with local journalism. You can maintain those subscriptions. That's a very stable part of our business long term, and delivering that in very exciting different platforms will allow us to reach younger audiences too. And we think that that's going to be a very good place to be for many years to come.
Bradley, you mentioned it, and Kirk just mentioned all the things you're doing, the events, the Propel, which is your digital marketing agency, more or less, and you're running a newspaper. Can you do it all? Do you have the expertise to do these things, which are really kind of outside the old-fashioned, printing of a newspaper business?
Yeah, I always say in our business, in any business, the most important things, it's people. You can't get things done unless you have great people surrounding you. And I have a great staff at the Dispatch Media Group, and not only there, an extended staff. I also oversee the central U.S. operations for GateHouse, and I have folks that work with me that manage a lot of those properties as well. But looking at the vision, the DMG in particular, and what I'm really good at as well is really grabbing resources to support and to ensure that we execute well. While we have good instincts, while we have great experience, we'll let data drive a lot of our decisions as we go forward. This is not a one-dimensional world we live in. This is a multi-dimensional world, and that's how we'll go to market. In a lot of ways. So. Just give me an idea.
Ray, on the magazine front, you worked for Columbus Monthly, then you left. Now you're back in charge. How has the magazine changed? The industry, the actual product that we get every week or every month?
Well, I'm affiliated with the City and Regional Magazine Association, so I get to see what is happening around the country. And feeding off my point here, we talk about media as this monolith, and you really can't look at it that way. You've got to look at it in the specific segments, magazines, and then within magazines, city and regionals. And generally speaking, city and regional magazines are not as challenged. I mean, there are a lot of challenges, but there's more stability in the magazine realm, in the city level. Now, each market is very different. Like where I came from, Gulf Shore Life, Naples area, and we left, by the way, because the weather is so much better in Ohio.
Today, anyway.
We just couldn't take the 80-degree sunny day, every day. Is a completely different market.
Yeah.
What we do at Columbus Monthly, that explanation part, just people there don't really want that as much. So you have to be attuned to your market. And in Columbus, I was Columbus Monthly 20-some years and editor for a while, and we always understood that people look to us for specific things, that explanation and that discovery. And that isn't good storytelling. Giving people value is the foundation of good business. And I don't think that's changed, no matter what. The platforms, the challenges change, but the core fundamental doesn't.
Bradley, the copy desk has been centralized in Texas. There were some cuts because of that. Mm-hmm. Where are there other areas in the newspaper reporting, editing, publication process where we might see further consolidation and, centralization of duties?
Mm-hmm. At this point, my goal and focus is, I think we're where we want to be right now. That's an efficiency strategy, going to Austin and looking at select part of our business to ensure that we can run very profitable and continue what we do. As I mentioned in my remarks, two things that I'm really focused on: keeping great reporters and videographers and photographers in the field reporting the local news and content. That's the most important thing. And one thing I didn't comment on is in the business side is keeping our sales executives in front of businesses to monetize that great content that we're delivering every day on every platform. So that's really our focus at this point. We feel really comfortable where we're at, and we're managing through the transition right now, and Alan and his team are doing a fantastic job.
Kirk, I promised I'd ask you the same question I asked the interim publisher the last time we were all together. How long are we going to have a daily newspaper land on our doorstep, print newspaper?
First of all, I was starting to feel like Governor Kasich. I'm not getting enough time up here.
I can give you more time.
So if we can... it's pretty good, wasn't it?
It was very good.
So I think the answer to that is going to be different in every city. So I don't think there's a one answer that applies to the industry at large. You're well aware that, Cleveland, for example, is already on a vastly different model than we are here in commitment to delivering the paper to homes 7 days a week. I think at the root of that is the profitability and the ability for the papers to maintain a reasonable profit margin. And if they can do that, they don't want to disrupt the routine and the habit and to force on consumers to wake up and respond differently every day to, this is the day I should read it online, but this is a Sunday and it's still a healthy paper for them, so they'll deliver it to me. We're going to have a very successful business here. We're well on our way. I see many years ahead for us publishing on a 7-day basis in print, delivered to homes. I see that vastly the case throughout our entire portfolio. If that becomes a trend, I hope to be one of the last companies to embrace it because I think it's fraught with risks. But I would say this, if someday there's no other real viable business model for American newspapers than to reduce the frequency in which they can print the paper and deliver it and such, if that sustains their commitment to journalism and covering the communities as good or better than they've been able to with the pressures that business model is imposing, then that's good for the country and that's good for journalism. But I see a long roadway ahead for us in publishing on a 7-day basis. We got this figured out.
To be fair, and to give you additional questions, be careful what you ask for. You mentioned that you've had some press coverage, and it's not always been the most enjoyable experience. New Media Investments took some heat for selling the Las Vegas newspaper to casino owner Sheldon Adelson. The company made a huge profit, 69% on the deal. Any regrets with that deal?
Wow. This is great. So just a little bit of background. This is probably a story you'd find great interest in. We acquired the Las Vegas newspaper along with a number of other papers last year. We were very excited about it. The market's growing tremendously. Obviously, when you're the successful bidder, there are other bidders. Over a brief period of time, another interested party emerged. Extraordinarily high-profile, wealthy individual in the Las Vegas community was interested in the paper and made an extraordinary offer. You referenced 69%. So in just 6 months, something that we hadn't anticipated, don't plan on as a regular business practice. It's not our playbook. But as a public company, it was really extraordinary, and we felt an obligation to our shareholders to give it serious consideration, and in the end, decided to sell the newspaper and keep the remaining properties that came with that portfolio. You ask about regrets. I think when you sell a newspaper to somebody that has that stature in the community, you are going to learn a lot because it's just not the typical transaction that we've encountered. It was highly unusual. I think many of us were a little out of our element figuring different aspects of that transaction out. For example, the owner didn't initially want to be known publicly as the individual or family backing the paper, preferred that be anonymous. And that obviously was something that we didn't think would last, committed to try to support. And kudos to the news organization in Las Vegas for, in very short order, revealing the ownership. And I think that was really good for...
Any regrets for agreeing to that provision in the sale agreement?
I think I felt like all of our instincts about the wisdom in that were validated in the way things played out, that it's not good and advisable. And I think we would even have a stronger voice if we were faced with that situation again. But I'm really delighted that there's complete transparency about the ownership. And I think from that, there were just so many other things, that you then are immediately in real time trying to solve for, which is exactly, how to assuage the community about the intent of the owner. And I thought they came forward and did a good job on that front. But I've found through the whole process that, and what I've tried to focus on are how can we be a better company from everything we've learned there. So yes, clearly things that we would do differently, and we can be a better company from what I learned from it and observed. And so, but I assure you, that's not our typical business model, and in the case here, we're not under any such discussions. We're very excited about this.
Hasn't called about the dispatch now?
No. We're very highly unusual, and learned a lot from it, for sure.
All right, we're going to open up to questions in a moment. It's our tradition at the Columbus Metropolitan Club to take questions from the audience, so please step up to the microphone there and we'll get to your questions. Bradley, before we get to the audience questions, your office is not over here on East Broad Street. It's not on the printing plant in Grove City, correct?
No, I actually have two offices.
You have two offices.
I gave the window offices to everyone in the newsroom, and I took the interior one. But I have my goal and focus is I really spend probably time in all three areas. We have our This Week News publications as well that is ran by Roy Biondi. And I spend a day up there. I'll spend a day downtown. On Wednesdays particular because I attend the editorial board meetings, and then at the plant 3 days a week, sometimes 2 downtown, depends on what's going on.
How involved should the publisher be in general in the editorial content of the newspaper?
I'm on the board, Alan and I and Glenn and others on the board. I'm not there, I am a participant. I'm not there to dictate. Alan and the board and I talk about, a very common theme that we use is the most important thing is do the right thing, and making sure that we're balanced, unbiased, and present both sides of the story as much as we can. But there's an opinion, and we all have participation in that. So it's really important.
Please state your name, ask your question, and please keep the speeches to a very short minimum. Thank you.
Marion Harris. I have a comment or a request first for Mr. Paprocki, and that is you have decreased the size of the font in the Columbus Monthly, and I wish you would bring it back to what it used to be. I don't think it's my vision. I don't know. Anyway, I love the magazine. I've been a subscriber since the very first issue, but it seems like the print has gotten smaller. My question is this, and you partially answered it. How is editorial policy decided now that we're part of a very large media group? Who decides what candidates to endorse, for example? What position to take on various issues, be they local, statewide, or national? Obviously, the Dispatch, before it was sold, had very distinct editorial policy, and we either agreed or disagreed, but it was there, and it was determined by a very small group of people. So I'm just curious, since we're now part of a large conglomerate, how is that going to be determined?
I'll answer that, and Kirk can comment as well. But the editorial board is local, and it's determined locally, all opinions in regards to what's determined in the content within an editorial page. And like I mentioned, myself, Alan, Glenn Scheller, and others on the editorial board. So there's not a, if you would call it, from higher up saying we should endorse this or we should go with this policy or whatever it may be from GateHouse. Once again, it's doing the right thing. It's being balanced. It's being informed. Everyone on that board has an opinion, a strong opinion, and it's a very robust conversation most of the time in the room, along with Nate Beeler doing the cartoons to address that. But, a couple things on the editorial board just recently that is unprecedented, within the Dispatch. One is the Kasich endorsement, okay? Just recently, that's the first time a primary candidate has been endorsed in the history of the Dispatch. So those are things you'll see and find and read that you'll may get some surprises in a good way and in a different way. I wouldn't say we're more liberal or we're more conservative. We try to balance that. And, we're doing a lot of other things, thinking about in regards to outreach to the community, not so much bringing in others into the editorial board meetings per se, but Alan and team are working on an outreach program to go into the communities that we serve, and another unprecedented approach to how we go to get content and information. Previously, it's been very in the building, and reporter will go out or so, but we want to reach out to the community and have forums. Could be town halls, small, could be talking, but most important, go where people are working, playing, and living, and understanding their problems and their issues, addressing those, hearing from them firsthand, bringing that back, and really getting more context. Not that we don't have great stories, and not that we don't do a really good job now, but Alan and team have talked about how can we do it better? How can we get more engaged than ever before? And that's really exciting for us. And we're working on that project right now to formulate not only because it's easy to go and do once or twice, right? This is something that we're looking at as a sustainable strategy and approach to how we gather content, not a brush fire, not just a once or twice show up and no grandstanding here. It's really, really important work. So really excited about that aspect.
Kirk, is there a GateHouse policy? For instance, will some newspapers in the chain endorse Donald Trump and other newspapers endorse Hillary Clinton if they are our two nominees for president?
Sort of the corporate
is there
perspective on that,
we'll
or my personal hope?
Well, both would be fine.
We'll just play it safe and go down the middle here. I would say we grant a tremendous amount of editorial autonomy to our local newsrooms, editors, and publishers. So I trust they'll get it right.
Go ahead, sir. Oh, wait, I can't let Ray off the hook. The small print, Ray, I need larger print too. Okay. It's the little things. Or the bigger things.
We actually did increase it slightly. Craig Rusnick, our design and production manager, can attest. We did bump it up a little bit, so maybe we bump it up a little more.
Well, it's indicative of the little things that we talk about, these big picture things about the industry and change, but it comes down to font size or the color of the paper.
One thing when we look at the stuff, one of my favorite words is readability. Can you read it?
Simple as that. Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, John Hartman, 7-day home delivery subscriber.
Thank you, John.
It's a marketing question. President Obama was reelected with 60% of the vote in Franklin County. Yet the Dispatch editorial page reflects, I think one could arguably describe as hate and disdain for President Obama. How can you justify that editorial position when you're trying to reach out, you're trying to expand your audience, your core audience is located in Franklin County, and yet on an almost 2 or 3 times a week basis, you are insulting the President of the United States, in essence, insulting 60% of your core audience. Thank you.
I'll have a short comment on that, but if Alan Miller wants to comment on that as well, I'm more than happy to hand it over to him as well. Our focus is, once again, we want to be balanced and consistent in our editorial pages. If you look back, no doubt we've covered other aspects on a positive side on Obama. There may be some other, comments that are not as favorable to his presidency whatsoever. But there's a balancing of that. If you read across the pages throughout the months and the year, no doubt you'll see a variety of positions that we go with as we talk about the editorial.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Sarah Davey. Just to add on to the community and reaching out to the community, I'm a teacher. And my question is news and education. As you're taking the platform digital this year, our districts went to a one-to-one technology plan in the classroom where the students actually have a device in the classroom. With your new website coming up, is there going to be a tool on that website that our educators can go to your page and say, I can get the local news that are relevant to my students and how they're learning and how they pull Columbus into the classroom? And secondly, how do we put the newspaper print into each school? Meaning, when the teachers go to the teacher's lounge, they're looking at the dispatch or that publication on the table, and they can use that for our students as they grow and become part of our community.
Great. There's two forms there. Obviously, there's the printed version, there's the digital version. In a lot of the industry, NIE, newspapers and education, is a very common piece. And then there's ONE, which is the online version. We just rolled out our new mobile app. And as we look at, with Mario Garcia and convert our site and change it, we do need to take that in consideration and go deeper into the education. Actually, my wife is a teacher and a high school counselor by trade as well, so I really respect what you do. And, those are two aspects of the business that we've kind of, as an industry, not just here, somewhat relinquished, the NIE portion, on the printed version for a few reasons. But I think that, we will look at re-engaging as we change and convert not only the dispatch, but also the digital component to re-engage and look at that. And I'd love to get your name after the session here to chat a little bit more about that.
Hi, Michael Kirkman. Thanks for being here. Is the
Yeah.
never had a plan for the fall? Coming back in the general.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. What happened to the dispatch poll? And Alan Miller said we don't poll in the primaries, but I guess the question is, will we see it in November?
Yes, you'll see it in the general election. Yes, it'll be back. And with the, the convention in Cleveland with the Republican convention, it's even going to be a lot more robust and a lot more activity, to say the least.
Hi, Carol McGuire. I'm very pleased that you're all here today. And I thank you for your continued support of the greater Central Ohio area. There was concern when GateHouse was announced as the purchaser of the dispatch and other affiliated groups. This is advice.
I'll repeat. Go ahead.
That's okay. That there would be some significant adjustment in the financial support of many of our nonprofits, arts organizations, and cultural institutions. Now that you've had an opportunity, I suppose this is directed toward to get settled in, what do you anticipate going forward as with regard to continued or increased support of arts and culture? As you know, that's a very important part of our fabric here in Columbus.
Okay. The question was, what's the plans of GateHouse and the Dispatch Media Group in supporting arts and cultural institutions going forward in Columbus? Go ahead, Kirk.
I appreciate that question, and especially as someone who grew up with a passion for theater and music, so I'm with you on the importance of that in the community and for it being woven into the fabric of what we do and editorially and in our support of the community. I'm not extremely well-grounded right now in the whole history of how we've covered the arts community or how we've engaged with the arts community, or even particularly how Mr. Wolfe in the past funded various groups. I'm sure it was inspired. But what I would tell you is that we do expect all of our newspapers and hope that they will engage with the arts community in the markets we serve, look for opportunities to promote their interests, engage in the fundraising endeavors that they're committed to, as we do through the community service arm of owning and operating newspapers. We'll never match the generosity of somebody like John Wolfe and the Columbus community as a corporate newspaper group. We ask our publishers to look each year, not necessarily make the same commitments year after year after year to the same organization, look for opportunities to recognize the good that many other organizations are doing, and to also just be very creative in the ways that our marketing efforts and our relationships with organizations can help bring groups together, support the auctions, all the sorts of things that are core to fundraising. So we are very committed to that, and hopefully, as I learn maybe a little bit more about what we've done here in the past, we can make sure that we meet your expectations.
With that, we'll turn it over to Mo. Thank you very much to our panel. I appreciate your candid, short, straightforward answers. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Let's thank again Kirk Davis, Ray Paprocki, Bradley, Harmon, and Mike Thompson. Thanks again, guys. We hope you will join us in the lobby for coffee and cookies and continuing the conversation. Feel free to continue to watch our programming on Columbus Television, WOSU, and the Ohio Channel, and of course through the CMC website. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Great job, guys. Great job.
Thank you.